give a round of applause for that. Doesn't that video make you excited to be a Midlander today? And I want to say a special thank you to the oilfield photographer and James Durbin and his team. They did great work on this in conjunction with city staff to put that video together for us, and we're thankful for that. I just want to say thank you for letting me be here with you today, and for all of you gathered here. We're going to talk today about what we've accomplished in the last 12 months or so. But we're also going to be standing on the shoulders of the work that's been done by previous mayors and councils and other leadership in our community. This room is always filled with the people who've worked for many years to get us to the place that we are today. And so I say thank you to you, to each of those previous mayors and council members who've worked so hard to get us to this point. We are making Midland a better place to be, and we are working hard to make this Midland momentum happen. We talk a lot about that at City Hall right now. The momentum that we have built over the last few years, we want to see that push forward. And so one of our primary goals is to make Midland safer and cleaner and better. And we're moving those initiatives forward through a lot of things we're going to talk about today. One thing that I'm going to take a shameless moment here to plug. My daughter recently received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy, and thank you. And I just wanted to be able to share that with you. Also to say that this is the second year in a row that her school has been able to send somebody to the Naval Academy, and that's a really big accomplishment from the City of Midland. I've heard that there's another student who will be making an announcement. I'll let him make his own announcement, but there will be another going soon. And so we're so thankful for the education and for the other things that are happening in our community to give our kids opportunities into the future. So as we're going to talk a little bit about Midland, we're going to go through this process and talk through about sound governance that we're working on right now. We're going to talk about prioritizing our priorities. And I've used that term quite a bit recently, and a friend of mine asked me, isn't that just kind of jargony? But I think it's what Midland has to do. We have so many priorities, and if I were to ask each one of you, what is your priority for Midland today, you would probably have a different answer. And so when we identify priorities, we have to then prioritize the priorities to see what are we going to get accomplished first. And that's an effort that we're going through right now with City Council. We're also working towards a safe and secure city, a strong and growing economy, and the quality of life and place that our citizens mandate from us. I feel like this was something that was an idealized version of Midland at one point. Now we see this as just required. We can no longer be complacent in the Midland that we remember from the 80s and 90s. We know that we want this to be a place where we want our kids to come back and live, where they want to raise their own families and build a community into the future. And then we're also going to talk about community engagement, how we are able to pull people in to what we're doing at City Hall and through the other taxing entities here in our community. There are priorities that we're working on together, but we don't do those things isolated. We do those things in the context of the broader Midland community, and that means we need your engagement. We need people to buy in and participate and contribute to the decisions that we're making so that our decisions reflect what the community of Midland really wants. And so as we're working through those things, I want you to see a picture of each of our council members. And I want to acknowledge Dan Corrales. We went ahead and included his picture here, and I want to thank you for your support of our council over the last few months. This has been a difficult season after his death, and so I want to just put a plug in there for the election that is coming. I believe it would honor Dan's memory for everyone to get out and vote, for us to have a better voting turnout than we have had in some of these special called elections. He would want Midland to be represented by someone to be the voice for people. And so I encourage you to get out there, educate yourself on this upcoming election cycle, and make sure that you get to the polls and take 10 people with you when you go to the polls. I also want to just talk a little bit about each council member. We have a very strong council right now. Everyone is engaged and has found priorities that they are moving forward and advancing. And so I just wanted to go through those and talk a little bit about what has risen to the top for each of these council members as they're working for you in Midland. And Robin Poole, in particular, has really given a focus to our airport. She serves as the airport liaison for the airport board. She is contributing so much to that. She's made herself an expert in a lot of the airport board issues that we're facing for both Midland International Airport and Midland Air Park. And there are several projects that she is helping to push forward because she's giving that so much attention. And she's been able to solicit dollars in partnership with Justine Ruff, our airport director, and the rest of our staff to really advance some things there. You've also seen the fly-in that she's helped to host, I want to get the Fly Into Fall event that she's helped to host with our airports over the last couple of years. It's been such a well-attended event. My kids, I think, all want to be pilots now, so, but she's done a great job with that. And then she's also begun the Youth Advisory Council, which was something we had historically, and it had sort of died away during COVID, and she's helped to bring that back. And we have a great group of kids from schools all over Midland that are participating in that advisory council. We also have Councilman Dufford. We call him Downtown Dufford. Some of you may call him Downtown Dufford. He has, for the tenure that he's been here, over 20 years, pushed for good development in our community and in our downtown area, and he continues to do that for quality of life initiatives and also for the advancing of our economy here in Midland. He's really put a lot of effort into that. We also have Councilman Norman, who prioritizes parks and youth engagement and has really done so much for youth sports in our community in his role as council member, but also in his own professional career. He's contributing to our community on a personal, a professional, and on a service level. And so we're so thankful for the work that he's doing there. And then we also have Councilman Ladd. He's our roads expert. He is participating with Motran and our Metropolitan Planning Organization and with TxDOT to really help with a lot of the regional success that we've had in drawing I-27 and I-14 and a lot of other road expansion that we need, not just inside the city of Midland, but beyond that, thinking with a big picture for where we're headed as a community. And then Councilwoman Amy Stretcher Burks has really contributed so much to our Animal Services Department. She has been so accessible to people with concerns related to that. She's also serving on our Midland Development Corporation as liaison, and so she's contributing to so many different moving parts in our community, and she's such a great advocate for her district, as are the other council members. But she really has taken a focus because there's so much growth happening in District 4, where she's leading. So I just want to say thank you to each of you as council members for what you've contributed and you're continuing to contribute in Midland. One of the big priorities that we've had as a council, and as we went through this transition of city manager, we wanted to see a strategic plan in Midland, not just a list of hopes and dreams for what we want Midland to be for the future, but how will we execute those hopes and dreams? How will we move that forward and advance the ball? And so in putting together this strategic plan, we also made a strategic hire. We have a new city manager, Tommy Gonzalez, and many of you have had the opportunity to meet him. He brought in with him a system of developing that strategic plan that we bought into as a council and our staff members have bought into as well. And that strategic plan has allowed us to focus some of those hopes and dreams for our community. And we settled on 6 strategic goals for Midland. And we are funneling everything we're doing in a council meeting or anywhere we're voting on something. We check ourselves. Does this fit within our strategic plan? And if not, it's not a priority for us. But if it does, then we want to make sure that we buy into that. And city staff is doing the same. If they're spending their time on something that is outside that strategic plan, we want to get rid of that. We want to make sure we are focused on advancing things here in Midland. I also want to just share what those goals are with you quickly. We have, the first one is a strong economy with more quality jobs. We have setting the standard for a safe and secure city, which includes trash and litter pickup, but it also includes a lot of our public safety initiatives with police and fire and other things. Number 3 is the quality of life and place and advancing that for Midland. Number 4 is the transparent and consistent communication. I think you would agree with me that you've never seen more coming at you from the City of Midland in terms of communication. And we're thankful for the partnership of Stuart Doreen and our communications team to really move that and change the way that we're getting information out to you. We don't do it perfectly, but we are working to improve that every single day. Number 5 is providing sound governance and fiscal management. And I want to give a little shout out to Christy Weekland, our finance director, and her team. We have achieved 0 audit findings for the first time in at least 20 years. Let's give her a round of applause. For a period of over 20 years, we have had audit findings, and that's, many of you are running businesses, you know that that is not atypical. But to come to a place where we have a lot of internal controls that are helping to guide us and direct us to the point where we have zero audit findings is a huge win for our community. Number 6 is strengthening and sustaining our infrastructure. And some of you are ready for us to quit that for just a little bit because of all the orange cones. But we can't let up. If we look at the growth and expansion of our community, the population growth, the number of cars that are on our roads, we cannot quit. And you would not thank us for that. If we were to pull back now, then you would not thank us for that. But what we are doing, and you will thank us for this, is we have hired a capital improvement program director who is managing those projects, and we have put some controls in place to help get those done more efficiently so that we are able to have some teeth to our contracts and some follow through to those contracts when we have a contractor that leaves something sitting for months on end. And I've heard from many of you that that's been a frustration, and so we're putting processes in place to address that at this time. All right, so we have kind of talked through these vision for Midland really comes through with all of those goals that I've just listed for you. And we have embarked on this 5-year forecast for our budget, but also 5-year forecasting, let me go back one, 5-year forecasting for our capital improvement plan. We want not only to have a strategic plan for today and how we're making decisions, but where are we headed next? And if we don't have a vision for that for the next 5 years and even beyond, but especially for the next 5 years, we will inevitably miss something and we will not be prepared for the growth that Midland is facing. And so that 5-year capital improvement plan and 5-year budget planning is helping to guide a lot of the things that we're working on. We have talked a lot about, among our council and certainly with Tommy Gonzalez and staff, we want to put our needs before our wants. We have needs in our community that we need to address, and we've seen that happen with several other taxing entities. We're thankful for the needs that are being addressed by our school district and Midland College, Midland County, and the hospital district. We want to be making sure we're doing the same thing with the City of Midland, and so we have to prioritize what those things are. What do you really want us to pay attention to as a mayor and council? And so we have done something called a Pavement Condition Index, PCI, and that Pavement Condition Index indicates to us that in order to sustain the existing roadways that we have, 667 miles of paved roads just inside Midland city limits. Wrap your brains around that. That's a lot to maintain. If we want to maintain it at the quality that it is today and at the size that it is today, we need $35 million put into that budget every year to be able to sustain that. That's a huge number. And in this fiscal year budget that we're in right now, we were only able to allocate $8 million towards road maintenance in this fiscal year. We are not meeting what we need to do. And so the way that we're addressing that is through the Vision Zero process, where we've done an evaluation of our roadways, identified our key needs, and we're going to be participating with some federal and state grant dollars to allocate those dollars towards local projects so that the full burden of that needed $35 million doesn't fall on the backs of local taxpayers. And we believe this is a necessary step that we're taking. If you look at the potholes fill requests that we've had there, we've actually filled in 2023 alone 13,790 potholes in Midland, Texas. So just think, if we don't spend the needed $35 million every year, how many potholes are we going to need to fill in 10 years? And so this is part of the plan that we have as we're working things forward. With our road bond, we have 2 remaining projects, Garfield and Main Street, and those are taking longer than we had anticipated and than council previously anticipated. But we have plans in the works to get those executed. I did want to say, on the Garfield one, it says it's under the leadership of Mayor Lori Blong and the current council. One of my girlfriends recently told me the Lori Blong project on Garfield is not going well. And so I want to apologize for that. And I might say that might not be my project, but we are working through this with our capital improvement plan and the director of that program to really advance that. We have purchased a machine to do that concrete paving in-house. And so it's allowing us to save money. We're also gaining some expertise, not me, but those guys are gaining some expertise in operating that so that we'll be able to see more concrete roads in Midland's future. And so we are working towards that right now. We're also expanding a lot of the signalized intersections. We've approved 6 now that are going to be put into place around Midland. We prioritize those based on the amount of traffic that's going through those intersections. And so if you've not seen the list of those 6 that are coming, those are available on social media. We encourage you to find that list, and likely there's one coming near you. So I want to talk a little bit about I-27 and I-14. These are 2 projects that have been in the works for decades, possibly longer than I've been alive. I don't know exactly when this conversation started. Mr. Craddock, Speaker Craddock, you can tell me exactly how long we've been working on some of these conversations to bring the expanded infrastructure to Midland. But we now have federal legislation that allocates I-27 to come through Midland and I-14. And these are coming to Midland and to Odessa for our greater MSA to be able to provide the movement of goods and services through here. We know that the growth of our economy, it happens exponentially with the addition of additional interstates. And so we want to make sure that we're allocating our time wisely to lobby at the federal level and at the state level for dollars to be able to bring those things through here. And so you can see the maps there of I-14 and I-27. My goal is for this to happen faster than it would if we were not paying attention, but we know this is going to take many years to accomplish. I showed this map last year, and it was one of the maps that a lot of people asked me for afterwards, so I thought I would share it again. But these are the locations of our water sources. You might notice that none of those water sources are very close to Midland. We rely on the planning of previous leaders, all the way back to the 50s and 60s, who made acquisitions of well fields far away from Midland, and then they made plans for bringing that infrastructure to be able to bring bring water to Midland. We have to take this really seriously, and if you'll look there, T-Bar and Clearwater, which are subterraneous water sources, they account for 30% of our city water, and Lake Thomas, Spence, and Ivy in the CRMWD system accounts for 70% of our water. We know that surface water, lakes, what happens to Texas lakes during a drought? They dry up. And so we've worked really hard, as have previous councils, to plan ahead for that. And we've identified some water sources. But another thing I want you to be aware of, we have 5 different companies that have come to us with oil field technology to say we have options for beneficial reuse. We can purify some of the subterraneous water that we previously thought was not worth trying to process for municipal use. So we have a pilot program. We're going to be going out for RFP for that in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be doing a pilot program to see how we can use some oil field technology for beneficial reuse to advance things for our municipal water system. We believe that Midland can be on the cutting edge of doing this and show not just our region, but our state and our nation how we can more efficiently use our water that's available to us. And so be looking for more information coming about that. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about. When we talk about a safe and secure city, we talk a lot about police and fire, and this gives you an indication of the number of calls that we make out into the county and around our city. Our fire department manages fire and EMS services for the entire county, not just for the city limits of Midland. Most Midlanders are not aware of that. We are covering the cost and the weight of all of those calls for the entire county. And so we've struggled for several years to maintain full staffing, and I'm proud of our fire department and their leadership. We've been able to fully staff them with our last several academies. And we've allowed them to overhire because we know that there's some attrition over time. And so they're overhiring with each of those academies, which is helping to sustain a full staffing level for us there. We've moved in that direction for the police department. We've increased pay by $11,000 to be able to attract and retain more talent in our police department. And I'm really excited. For the last 4 years that I've been on council and as mayor, I've had to say that we're 40-ish officers short. But I'm happy to tell you that we've lowered that number with some of these recent changes to just 20 right now. And we already have some interviews and some hires in process to start the academy in August. And so we have line of sight to get those underfilled positions filled as soon as possible. So this is a really huge win for our community, and we're looking forward to welcoming those new guys on staff. Some of those are lateral hires from other communities. Midland is still a friendly place to be a police officer, and we know that's not true for all of our world. And so we're looking to bring in lateral hires from other communities, as well as new recruits in training. The other thing that I wanted to highlight before we move on from there is really a thank you to MISD and to Midland College for our fire training academy that's a partnership with the City of Midland. And local nonprofits and several foundations have helped to fund that. And we are already seeing graduates. We have 3 on-duty police officers today who are graduates of that program. And so we truly are looking for ways to grow our own in our community. And we couldn't do that without partnerships with MISD and with Midland College. So we say thank you for that as well. With our code enforcement and animal services, we have seen so much growth in need there. Animal services continues to be a hot button issue, and we are working towards some improved processes and strategies there. We have hired a part-time veterinarian. We have hopes of hiring a full-time veterinarian, but that has been more difficult than we anticipated, and so we're working towards that. But we also moved this under our fire department recently. So the Animal Services Department reports to Chief Blumenauer, and we've seen a lot of the efficiencies take place because of that change. And so there's a lot of improved processes under his leadership. Under our code enforcement, you've probably seen this dangerous building ordinance that we've worked really hard on as a council. We became aware of just how many dangerous and dilapidated vacant buildings we have in our community. Many of you have been aware of that for a long time, but we've started receiving constant phone calls, especially about the Vaughn building and a few others around town, where we have known criminal activity, people that are in places they should not be, and the ownership of these, the ones that we're targeting right now, aren't even Midlanders. We don't even have access to the ownership. So we needed a mechanism to be able to secure those buildings and make sure that our community is safe, so that there's not continued criminal activity there. So if you were coming down Big Spring, you may have seen the police department was there in force, clearing out the Vaughn building. And we wanted to make sure that we had any sort of paraphernalia out of there and that there were no people in there before we board that up. And you're gonna see that boarded up this week and next week. We are serious about preserving the integrity of our community and the safety and security of Midlanders. We do not want another fatality or an injury in those facilities, and so we're taking it very seriously. When we look at our economy in Midland, I think many of us, especially in the oil business, are feeling the pressure and the frantic pace that comes with a strong economy here in Midland. We're facing the hiring challenges. We know that we're the lowest unemployment rate in the state of Texas right now. And so we're all dealing with some of those same issues, but we take a lot of pride as Midlanders in that strong economy. And I have a few statistics to share with you here. But when we look at this, we know that the global economy is watching us like never before. We are contributing not just on a local or a regional scale, but on a global scale to the oil and gas and the energy that the world needs. We have we're number 3 on the list of 12 cities with the highest salaries and the low cost of living, according to GoBankingRates.com. So we're not just seeing the frantic pace and everything with the oil business, but we're seeing a lot of these jobs that are increasing salaries. We also have the highest per capita personal incomes in the nation. We jumped from $123,000 on average in 2021 to $143,000 in 2022. And if you're running a business and you're hiring people, you know that that number has probably risen just in the last year. We are paying people well to do a job that needs to be done for our world. And so I just want to say thank you to the energy companies for what you do for our community, the way that you participate in these kinds of civic events, and the way that you really are undergirding a lot of the efforts that we're taking. We are also working on the average median age. I talked about this last year. The area median age for Midland is 31.4. And I think we just have to say that every time we're together, because I don't know that we think like that unless we remind ourselves who we really are serving in our community. The highest demographic for this community is ages 0 to 4 still. And so we are not just making decisions for Midland today, we're making decisions for Midland tomorrow. And we have to make all of our decisions through that filter. In 2022, the Midland MSA grew by 16.2%, outpacing Odessa, Houston, Dallas, and Lubbock by double-digit percentage points. That's why it feels like there's so many people in HEB, right? You have that experience? But we also know, if we look at this from the perspective of oil and gas, we know that we are actually seeing a pullback in the active rigs in our area. And rig rate is the thing that we all track, right, to see how our economy is doing. And we today, the most recent statistic I was able to pull was 313 active rigs in the Permian compared to 353 a year ago. But here's the thing that has not changed. Our growth rate for population and usage out here has continued to climb, even with a pullback in rig count. We are producing more oil with less. With fewer rigs, with fewer people, we are producing more and we're continuing to grow our economy. We have consistently outpaced ourselves in production from the Permian, and many of you are contributing to that number. According to Texoga, we paid $26.3 billion in state and local taxes and royalties in 2023, shattering last year's record by more than $1.5 billion. That is significant growth, and it's not just funding our community and our region, it's funding the state of Texas. And we're thankful to Speaker Craddock and his efforts, along with others at the state level, for the priority that they've placed on our area for I-20. We've needed that to be expanded for some time. It may kill us all before we get it done, but we're so thankful that there is expansion going on there. And so as we're feeling some of these growing pains, we can point to oil and gas and the production, the work that we're doing in Midland to be able to advance the initiatives of the state. We also know that we have nearly 500,000 workers that are directly employed by oil and gas companies, either operators or service companies, nearly 500,000 in the state of Texas. And the average income of those guys is steadily grown. And I think we need to continue to tell that story well in Midland, but also as we're speaking outward to others in our region and in our state. We're doing an important job in Midland. As we've looked at small businesses in Midland, and this is something that comes up regularly, as we're looking at economic development deals, we have a continual question of why are we giving money to a large group when we're not doing anything for small businesses? And I wanted to just point out some statistics here. Through the MDC and also through some initiatives on City Council, we really are contributing strongly to the small businesses in Midland, and we're looking for opportunities to do even better with that. But $2.7 million, the MDC is awarded in funding to 29 different small businesses through the Entrepreneurial Challenge just since 2017. And some of the businesses that you frequent and know about really began because of some seed money that they received from that program. Tall City Brewery was one of those. The Birth Center was another one of them. There are businesses around our community that got their start through that program and are now thriving, and they're a staple in our community. 300 plus have started that program. That doesn't mean that they necessarily completed it, but they've engaged in that process and they've been able to get resources through UTPB's incubation of some of their efforts. And so even though they may not finish and be awarded the prize money, they're still getting resources through that program. $1.1 million through the CARES Act grant through COVID. Maybe this was one of the only good things that season brought us, but we were able to allocate those to small businesses in Midland. And so we're really proud of that as well. And then 4 out of 6 of the incubator offices at the UTPB seed building. This was a joint project through UTPB at the City of Midland and the MDC. 4 out of 6 of those offices are already occupied, and the first tenant was just admitted in August of 23. So we're watching growth happen through some of those partnerships, and we're thankful for it. Downtown development, and you've seen a lot of this in the news. Probably most exceptionally and most remarked upon is the Santa Rita Hotel and the approval of that contract with the city and the development group. But we're looking for other opportunities to develop downtown. And one of the ways that we've done that is through a TERS. Midland historically had a TERS. It was done away with, and we've brought that back with a committee represented by the city and each of the participating taxing entities. And so I want to say thank you to Midland County, to Midland College, and to the hospital district for participating in that TERS. We'll be able to take the incremental growth of property tax valuation over time and invest that back into downtown for things like lighting initiatives, for parking initiatives. We know that parking is something that often Midlanders complain about for downtown. And so we have plans in the works to use that growth of property tax to be able to invest that into downtown. We also have developed the Centennial District Overlay District to be able to streamline some of the processes for events that are going to be held downtown. We're trying everywhere we can find it to cut red tape and to eliminate waste in the spending, but also in the processes through downtown. And so that overlay district will allow us to fast track those who would like to make better use of downtown Midland. We're looking towards several different projects that we're going to have for additional programming in Centennial Park to bring Midlanders downtown with their families to participate in the great things that are happening there. So look for some of those developments to rise up in the future. I want to also talk about some of the private investment that's happening in Midland. We've talked a lot about what the city is doing, but we don't do any of those things in isolation. We do them in partnership. And these are some private investments that are taking place around our community for the Midland Athletic Syndicate, which is a huge development. I learned this week that they've already raised all of the money that they need for the capital campaign, and they're almost there towards endowing that effort. And so we are going to have a first-class premier facility for kids to play indoor sports, and we have sorely needed that. Thank you so much. And that really has been a partnership of local philanthropy that's made that happen. All of those dollars, 100% of those dollars, have been raised through local philanthropy and through the generosity of the people who are giving their time on that board. So we can't wait to see that happen. The Bush Tennis Center and the ACE Athletic Center that they're putting into to expand the reach of the Bush Tennis Center, we're so thankful for their investment in our community. And if you've not been out there to see what they're doing, it is really remarkable. There are families that are playing tennis together or pickleball and engaging all around the Bush Tennis Center campus. I do believe that it really is accomplishing what Mr. Henry's vision was for the Bush Tennis Center years ago. And this ACE Athletic Center will help to advance that even further. And so we are thankful for philanthropy in that as well. The Preserve and Zoo Midland are such exciting advancements also with private dollars that are coming forward in West Midland. And we're working really hard with them. They intend to break ground before the end of this year. I don't want to give a date to commit them to, but they're really excited about the opportunity to get started and really have these amenities for families in our community. And then when you direct your attention out to the airport, Delta Airlines is adding a flight from Midland to Austin directly, and that is sorely needed. If you have to go to Austin, you know that is sorely needed. It takes longer to fly there than it does to drive sometimes, and so we're thankful for Delta's partnership and adding to our community. And then we have the Space Force Association, recently committed to Midland for the next 5 years for the state of Texas. Their main office will be located in Midland. This is going to help us to attract a lot of executives who are doing Space Force development, who are working with a lot of national defense contractors. And this is something I would ask you to maybe educate yourself on and educate your friends about. The Space Force and the spaceport development is not really just about space. It's about our national security. So much about our national security dollars is being allocated towards developments that are happening at spaceports like this. Midland has the unique opportunity because we have a commercial airport in conjunction with our spaceport. There's no one else in the United States that has that. And so to have a commercial airport with the spaceport allows us to attract these national defense contractors. They're coming to us. We actually are going to them too, but many of these are reaching out directly to Sarah Harris at the Midland Development Corporation or to Tommy Gonzalez at the city to say, how can we make the best use of the acreage and the facilities that you have? And so there's going to be a lot of development coming related to the spaceport in the coming days and coming years. We also have a high-speed corridor between Midland and Spaceport Americus, and this is still in some of the development phases, but this would allow us to have a high-speed corridor for testing over land. Right now, if you want to get into one of these high-speed corridors on either of the coasts, you're talking about $50,000 for an hour and a wait of up to 18 months to even get into one of those space corridors. And so this is needed in the industry, and we're really excited about that. The other thing too, and I think we have to acknowledge this, there have been some false starts with some of the companies that came to the spaceport initially, but we're seeing so much growth in what AST and Science has done with their successful launch of satellites that were made right here in our community. We're seeing success through Firehawk and some of the initiatives that they're testing in Midland. And so if you're not familiar with some of the activity that's happening at our spaceport, I'd really encourage you to read up on that. It's very exciting. And I don't want to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to wrap it up here with quality of life initiatives and talk just a little bit about these parks that we have in the works. We have already approved the preliminary planning for the Beal Park development. This has been in the works for many years. There are council members who have long been retired who worked on Beal Park initiatives. And so we're thankful to see those things move forward. The design is underway for that, for a $35 million investment of city and private dollars into Beal Park for 62 to 64 new soccer fields to really be able to host youth soccer in one facility so that you're not driving from Butler Park to Windlands and missing a kid's soccer game in the process. We're going to get those all on one campus and have a really great opportunity there. We also have, and we're looking to break ground likely in 2027 on that. So we have to get through the design and all the engineering phases and then break ground in 27. Reyes Mashburn Elms is already under construction, and we're making a $16 million investment there for baseball fields for our rec youth little leagues and others who will use that facility, a huge asset to the east side of Midland. And then the Wildcatter Trail is an initiative that we're working on in partnership with Odessa and with UTPB and several other local oil and gas companies to have a safe walking and cycling path between Midland and Odessa. We've received let me get my numbers right here, $6.4 million for UTPB in grant funding from the state of Texas, and then almost $4 million for the City of Midland towards the beginning stages of building that trail out. We're going to get started. UTPB is going to get started, and they already have their design plans in the works. The City of Midland is going to get started with and we're going to build towards each other. And we're going to meet at the seed building as we begin to develop this trail out so that we can safely go back and forth between our two communities. We are really excited about all of these opportunities, and I'm not going to belabor this slide, but we want the community to be engaged in all that we're doing. We're working so hard to educate the community about our needs. We're working so hard to engage people in Midland 101 and Leadership Midland and participation with the Chamber of Commerce. We know that Midland is built on families and on the support of people like you. And so I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you are doing in our community, the work that you allow me and our council to do. And really just want to say I'm thankful to be in Midland, and I look forward to where we're headed in the future. Thanks so much.